And if someone wants to know why their own government has decided to go on a fishing expedition through every personal record or private document, through the library books that you read, the phone calls that you've made, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. What the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. There are Republican senators as well as Democratic senators that recognize that it's plain wrong. Every member of Congress has been briefed on this program. These are programs that have been authorized by broad bipartisan majorities repeatedly since 2006.
When I'm president, one of the first things I'm going to do is call in my attorney general and say to him or her, I want you to review every executive order that's been issued by George Bush.
And I think it's interesting that there's some folks on the left, but also some folks on the right who are now worried about it, who weren't very worried about it when it was a Republican president. As for our common defense, we reject as false the choice between our safety and our ideals. You can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy. We need to find a way forward to make sure that we can stop terrorists while protecting privacy and liberty of innocent Americans. You can complain about Big Brother, but when you actually look at the details, then I think we've struck the right balance. All right? Thank you very much, guys.
The New York Times is even saying the president has, quote, lost all credibility.
Searching reporters' phone records and emails, gathering data of Americans, targeting certain groups. But the political power of your data is nothing new to President Obama and his team. Here's correspondent Peter Boyer in part 4 of our Prying Eyes series.
Thank you, America. God bless you.
I so wish that I had been able to fulfill your hopes to lead the country in a different direction.
To nearly half of America, Mitt Romney's half, election night 2012 came as a shock. With a terrible economy at home and new dangers abroad, President Obama seemed so beatable. But Romney didn't know what Obama knew.
All right, let's see if this works.
Obama's team had used the advantages of incumbency, time and money, to create something new in politics.
They sort of created the perfect political corporation.
Sasha Eisenberg literally wrote the book on this new science of political campaigning that Obama mastered.
To make sure that people know how to vote.
By harnessing data, like your TV viewing habits, your social media network, your voting history, the Obama campaign made a virtual profile of every single persuadable voter in the country. Then, with experiments borrowed from behavioral psychology, they targeted people with personalized messages and coaxed them to the polls.
So these are basically like drug trials for politics, pharmaceutical trials, where the voters are the guinea pigs.
This experimental politics was developed in this very plain-looking Washington, D.C. office building that is home to the labor giant, the AFL-CIO. Inside is a secretive entity called the Analyst Institute.
What is the Analyst Institute?
The Analyst Institute is a consortium of liberal groups, parties, campaigns, and consultants. It was designed specifically to do science in secret to help Democrats win elections.
Eisenberg likens this enterprise to a political Manhattan Project with the goal of developing political superweapons. It was first seen in a Michigan governor's race 6 years ago. A couple of researchers were testing a concept called identity salience.
They randomly assigned voters to get one of several pre-election get out the vote reminders, and one of them said something like, Dear Peter, here's your history as a voter, and here are your neighbors' vote histories. And then there was a threat.
They threatened to tell your neighbors you didn't vote.
And this increased turnout among the people who received it by 20%.
The Obama team recognized that behavioral psychology could help them shape what voters thought and influence how they behaved. A consortium of psychologists helped Obama to define Mitt Romney. And the campaign embedded several people from the Analyst Institute into the re-election headquarters in Chicago.
So what was the cave?
So the cave is where we put the analysts.
Carol Davidson was Director of Integration and Media Targeting for the Obama campaign.
The hardcore analysts were in that room for multiple reasons. So this was our more top secret work, right? So, you don't want as press coming by to see what was on the screens of everyone. And we actually, during the election, didn't even really want people to know that the group even existed.
The president's tech team worked its algorithms to determine exactly who the persuadable voters were in the battleground states. Carol Davidson figured out how to get the Obama message to those specific voters. She developed something called the Optimizer, which showed her what television shows the persuadables were watching and when. This information was sold by some of your cable companies.
There's also a lot of people find something sort of creepy about this much data being out there about them and being used in a political campaign.
To me, at the end of the day, you get emails or direct or mail sent to your house all the time that you didn't know the person that sent them to you and they still knew your name. So I could say, "Hi, Peter, this is Barack Obama." That might be jarring, right? And
yeah, it would
freak you out. So is it just different, or is it really a concern about invading your life?
The Democrats have a big advantage on this. Both sides micro-targeted. The Democrats, however, took it to the next level.
Karl Rove is a Fox News contributor and former Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who was also close to the Romney campaign.
This is the other single brilliant part of the Obama campaign. They took their volunteers and appended them to the voter file and micro-targeted them. And they mapped their social networks, so they knew who was on your Facebook page, who was LinkedIn with you, who was on your Twitter feed, and these were brilliant insights.
Rove insists that Republicans can compete and will even win this new political arms race. That will excite many GOP partisans who just won a victory. But will this new way of politics just give us better manipulators rather than better leaders?
What happened to old-style political gut and political leadership, where you're out there trying to sell an idea to people and convince voters this idea is worth voting for?
Well, you put your finger on a good thing, because if you rely on the data to dictate everything to you, you make no room for leadership. The responsibility of leadership is not simply to follow, but to mold public opinion in the right direction.
Peter Boyer reporting. Our final piece in this series airs tomorrow.